Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Monday edition of Sidelines. A lot to talk about. Billy Roberts joining us here in just a minute from over in Atlanta. Also, Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, will check in with us from Tuscaloosa in the next segment. Top of hour number 2, we're going to head down to Gainesville, Florida. I love talking with Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com. Get his daily thoughts, his final pithy thoughts. He covers a lot of ground in a short period of time, but he'll be with us in hour number 2. And Wess Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock, will check in with us talking about what's going on up in Fayetteville and out on the Western Front. Arkansas now with a 2-game lead. I just checked it. 2-game lead in the SEC West at 11-4 over LSU at 9-5. LSU still has the missing game that they've got to somehow account for in the season. But, man, Arkansas is good. But, hey, we're here 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. 2 hours every day live, 8 to 10 a.m. Central on the www.sidelines.live morning sports show. We are ready to go. Doing about 50 hours plus a month of content. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. I also want to say hello to all of our listeners out there listening, syncing the show. Hey, you get that link in the morning. You find it on Twitter. You get it maybe via text, whatever. Tap on that link. You can sync it to your iPad, your iPhone, your desktop computer. You can listen in your truck, in your boat, in your airplane, in your duck blind, in the fishing boat, wherever you are. Great people out there listening everywhere. Tell your friends about it. And if you're interested in being a sponsor, let us know. Email us, Rob Browne Sidelines. That's Brown with an E, Rob Browne Sidelines at gmail.com. Billy Roberts is on with us this morning in the first segment. And Billy, that was fun Saturday talking. We're getting into a lot of really cool baseball minutia that most people don't know, but like what Butch Thompson talked about, Mazzoni, Leo Mazzoni was different than he is, and every manager, coach is walking out to the mound. But and I just saw the commercial with the Braves players. I guess it's a Dairy Queen thing with the app on there. You said they've got a great agent.
Yeah.
But watching an edition of Leave It to Beaver this morning, everybody back then played baseball. That's all you did. You go up and down the street like when you and I were kids. Now with specialization, kids they're not doing anything except for a certain number of hours each day, when a lot of them are being carted by their parents in the grocery, $80,000 grocery grabbers running around town in these big SUVs, and they're specializing. They're not playing all the sports, but the moms get the kids to all the sports. I mean, women don't ever discount how big of sports fans women are, because really they're taking them to all the games, the practices, and everything like that. The dads are there, no question. But, man, I just think about how much baseball, swimming, tennis, basketball, neighborhood football games that we played as kids. And I look now at a lot of kids are inside playing video games, watching the Idiot Box, and they're, again, specializing. And then you wonder why the 12-year-old kid's shoulder has to be operated on with Tommy John's. But I thought that was a really cool discussion apropos to what we're talking about. And you've got great orthopedic surgeons out there. They line up to tell you, play multiple sports, give your body rest in between. So, hey, also want to say something. Chad House, ECS House Industries, they are planning out here right now, working at least till, midnight, sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning. You got to get it in while you can. But the betterizer, the pulverizer, the aerators. If you ever see a catfish farm, and catfish farming is big, it's called aquaculture. They get that equipment from ECS House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, right in the heart of the Delta. Billy, let's get started. SEC baseball race. It is so competitive, and the teams are so good. I'm looking at this SEC West. Arkansas at 11-4, LSU at 9-5, A&M at 7-8, Bama 6-9, Auburn 5-10, or Mississippi State 5-10, Auburn 5-10.
Yep.
And Ole Miss defending national champions at 3-12. Look over in the East, Vanderbilt on top at 13-2, Florida 11-4. South Carolina looked unbeatable. Now they're 10-4. They've still got to finish a game. Them and LSU had to miss that third game. Kentucky at 10-5, Tennessee at 5-10, Missouri 5-10, and Georgia at 4-11. Now, a year ago, Tennessee was on top of the world. They lost guys. We all understand that, but you don't really have in the SEC a very big window to grow. You got to be good. It's like living in the interstate, in the median on I-95 or Interstate 85. You got to pull out of your driveway doing 105, Billy. That's baseball, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. You can't develop a program anymore. Nobody's going to give you 4 years to develop something and grow it from the ground up. That's why, these guys have got to go get transfer portal findings where they can. They got to re-recruit the guys they already have. And then, if you've got good enough players, you're going to lose some to the draft every year that are going to go. So, it would be tough to try to be a program builder in today's era. It's just everybody's got to be Calipari, just a bunch of one and dones, and that's kind of what the baseball, environment is turning into what college basketball has been for a while.
That part of it. The veteran teams are the ones that are excelling in the NCAA tournament. So you look at that. How many times did we have that discussion on the show leading up to the NCAA tournament? One and done doesn't work. It's not a consistent model. At least in baseball, you've got to stay 3 years in college.
Yeah, for sure. And but even then, if you bring in a guy who's a great pitcher right out of high school, he can have an immediate impact. So even though you got guys that will stick around for a couple of years, that year-to-year infusion of new talent, particularly with pitching, that can have a dramatic impact because it's probably 80% pitching. I think Coach Thompson, made a statement like that on Saturday. Pitching is everything in baseball.
Yeah. And but Billy, in the major leagues, it's hard to find the pitchers. In college, it's hard. So that means that the kids that are starting way too early, a lot of them are giving it up because their bodies have already broken down, maybe even in middle school. And if the message doesn't get down to, the lowest beginning entry level of baseball, we're going to continue to have this nightmare. But you find me a team that says we've got so many pitchers, we don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. No, you're right about that. And, with this advent of travel baseball, these kids play baseball year round, and if they're pitching year round, that's just not going to work. You got to have an off season as you're growing, as you're an adolescent, to let your arm heal up. And if you were playing basketball or football, another sport, that would happen. But when these kids decide, and their parents more likely decide for them, you're gonna play baseball, and to get a college scholarship, or even play college, forget the scholarships, to play at the college level, you're going to have to play travel baseball. They put a huge amount of money and resources into that. My daughter went to high school with a couple of girls who from the age of 7 were on travel soccer teams. And they played soccer all over the country. They were going to tournaments in San Diego at like 11, I mean, it was just crazy. And they were phenomenal soccer players. And they ended up getting soccer scholarships to Sanford and Birmingham. That's where they ended up going to play college soccer. They were two twin girls, but they were gone every weekend around the country. Their parents, put a huge amount of investment in their soccer careers, and it was just unbelievable what little time they had. So, they were under stress just to please their parents, I guess, just to go around and not have any downtime. And also, it's not just boys playing baseball or basketball year round, girls with soccer and gymnastics and stuff like that. It can stress their bodies out too if they're doing that every single weekend. You got to have a change of seasons and a different sport that you're playing to develop your body in a different way, because I've been playing tennis since I was 7, and at the age I'm at now, I've got repetitive motion injuries. I've got a hip and an elbow and a shoulder that don't bother me walking around during the day, but when I go out and play tennis, it hurts, and because it's a repetitive motion injury of hitting the same shot for 40 years the same way. Thankfully, I can still get out there and do it, but definitely repetitive motion injuries are that's just the way you do it. That's the form that you throw the ball or catch the ball. It's the same over and over again. If you do that long enough, you're going to hurt something.
Well, that's why you got to switch it up. If it's swimming, it's every third stroke. You alternate breathing, turning left or turning right. It's so basic. Billy, let's switch gears. Talking about this college football season coming up. Magazines will be out in about 5 weeks, but we start having the night of the national championship game in college football, the way too early, they're always called that, way too early top 25 predictions. It's getting harder, isn't it, to try to predict the top 25? Even the top 5, maybe you can do it. But beyond that, with the portal being as big of an influence as it is, you've got – now we got the window that started Saturday, April 15th, and it'll go into early May. Got another opportunity to grab players. And so you can come out with a magazine. What they're doing is smart. They've all got a website that you go to that adjusts for it. But I was thinking about this. We could line up growing up. You could name, and not until very recently, you could recite the roster, the depth chart of your favorite team. A lot of people could. I know I could.
Yeah.
Now it changes like the leaderboard in a PGA tournament. It's constantly changing. It's like a tennis, watching a tennis match, back and forth, volley. I don't think though. I do not think that's hurting the interest in college football. Do you?
No, it's not. It's just a different thing. And for, younger fans, this is what they know. So they don't have the perspective or the interest in comparing to, the way it used to be. When you and I were in high school and even younger than that, you couldn't wait for Lindy's and Athlon's magazines to come out at the convenience store. You'd run and get it and thumb through it because you wanted to see what they had to say about your team. And now that seems pretty quaint. The websites can change every hour and keep an updated, tally on what's going on. So it's just a different, age in terms of information is more readily available, and it changes so quick. A website's the only way to keep up with it. So, but if somebody's a teenage fan today, this is what they know and what they expect. So, it's just different. But yeah, the ability for a team to improve after spring football is unheard of to somebody like you or me, where like you would look at what your team looked like in the spring, and you hope your players that were going to be contributors did not get hurt during the spring. You remember how it used to be where you had somebody blow a knee up in spring and they were going to be out for a year, and you're like, well, there goes August and September, they won't be ready for the season. I mean, those spring injuries are devastating. Now, like, we'll go get 3 more running backs. It's, before the fall practice starts in July, and or June, no big deal, right? It's just,
yeah.
But I can remember, when you and I were younger, somebody at Auburn would inevitably get hurt in the spring, and you just would go, there we go.
Yeah.
That's going to ruin the season.
Well, and now, yeah, we used to have the spring games that all end in late April, and some of them still do. But, they start Missouri had their spring game in mid-March. They had to move it indoors because the weather was so bad. And look, mid-March in Missouri, hell, it's still cold here in Memphis and Parkin. You can have an 86-degree day, then you can have a 51-degree day. That's spring in the South.
Yeah.
You know that. But I do think that the portal will level itself out. The free market, like I said, I always say this, but it does. It works it out. People will adjust and start basically, if you're trying to keep up with the depth chart of your favorite team, you just put in there, instead of using a pen, just use a pencil. I mean, it's a lot more flexible, but I think
with the portal, it's not necessarily the guys that you're counting on to be, stars and big time contributors. Yeah. They're staying because they're assured of playing time. What you're seeing with the portal is guys that think they're maybe better than they are, or they're going to be a depth piece at a stacked roster like UGA, but maybe they could see more playing time at another school like Ole Miss or Auburn or some other place. So those are the guys.
Let's take a quick break. Come back. I want to talk about that. But the portal's the place you go now rather than quit and be embarrassed. You go in the portal and make yourself look more valuable sometimes than you really are. Be right back.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Maynard, a fourth-generation residential broker with Hobbs & Realtors. Inventory is still a record low in Memphis, and the demand for more supply is continuing to spread across the Mid-South. Rates are starting to stabilize, which means the number of buyers is picking up daily. If you are interested in taking advantage of today's market, please give me, Eleanor Maynard, your Sidelines Live residential specialist, a call today, and let's discuss your needs. 901-761-1622 or directly on my mobile, 901-219-1905. That's 219-1905.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Billy Roberts, Rob Browne here with you on this Monday morning edition of Sidelines. And Billy, I've got this cool book. I'd like to reference it. SEC Football's Greatest Games, Alex Martin Smith. Bought that on at Square Books in Oxford, Mississippi. And, I think a lot of people go, where the hell are all the bookstores? You've got to have bookstores. If you don't have bookstores, you're going to struggle. But they have more cool books. There's Square Books, and there's 2 Square Books stores on the Oxford Square. I'm thinking back in about the 2001 Ole Miss Arkansas game. And I think it's the greatest games in SEC history. And I'm going to start doing this every day, kind of spotlight on a game. And that was the 2001 Arkansas Ole Miss game in Oxford. 7 overtimes, I think it was. It was insane. It was tied 17-all. And that was Eli Manning's first year as a starter. It's just blew my mind. And you think back, the overtime rules had come into play in 1996. We all remember that Auburn, Georgia 4 overtime disaster.
Oh, yeah. I had a front row seat for that. I think Bobo was the quarterback.
Yes, he was.
In that game, yeah. That was a great game for him. And I had a date to that game who was a Georgia fan. And I was, consoling her in the fourth quarter going, it was a good ball game. I'm sorry you guys are going to win. They come roaring back and win the game, and I had to eat a lot of crow.
Yes, that was definitely eating crow time because nobody saw that one coming.
No.
And we're going to do this. You look back at that game. You look back at that game, and, nobody saw that one coming. Eli Manning, again, was not a rock star yet. He had the name, but he wasn't a rock star yet. And Houston Nutt was coaching Arkansas. And I remember it. We were up in Chamberlain, South Dakota, pheasant hunting, watching that game. And it was incredible. And you go back and look. I'm trying to remember. Arkansas won. I believe Arkansas did win that game in the end. I've got to double check that because it was
I think they did.
The final, yes, was Arkansas 58, Ole Miss 56. Again, nobody saw that one coming. And I'm looking on here right now.
Playing for Arkansas as a running back in that game. I mean, who were there? They were loaded. They had so many good running backs, didn't they?
Okay. And so I'm looking on here at all the games that you've seen, in overtime, and you think about that game. The first ever overtime game in SEC history was the Auburn, Georgia game that ended. Georgia, Damian Craig was stopped trying to go around right end at the end of the game. Are you a fan? I mean, it's here. I mean, look, we've had overtime for 27 years now, but you like the new rule where after a couple of touchdowns, it becomes a 2-point deal.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because it gets to be like an extra inning baseball game where it just gets ridiculous. An 18-inning game, in baseball was horrible. Nobody wants that. You burn up your pitching staff and you're no good for the next week, with your relief pitcher. So in football, if you're playing too many overtimes, it's just like an extra quarter or more of a game. And with these young guys in particular, that's too tough on them, to play that much extra football. So it's exciting for a couple of times to go back and forth, but you gotta make them go for a touchdown and not settle for a field goal. You gotta make them go for 2 and not settle for a 1 point. That's exactly what you have to do to kind of bring it to a halt and not have it, be an extra 45 minutes of football. That's just too much on people's bodies. So at some point, the entertainment's got to give way to, let's make sure these kids don't get hurt.
Yeah. And you see some of these 7 and 8 overtime games, I'm not sure. And then the scores are totally, the stats on your defense or your offense are totally skewed. I mean, I'm one of these guys that looks at, if they say, how many points per game is your offense averaging? I'm looking at what they score against the 4 best teams on their schedule. That's a true indicator of what your offense is or isn't. Okay. I mean, you can play a decent team and win, 17-14, and then play some win and win 63-0. Suddenly, that means that you're averaging 40 points a game.
Right.
No.
Yeah, no, that inflates. But you remember that Auburn, Missouri SEC championship football game?
Yeah.
Several years ago. I mean, that ended up being 60-58. I mean, it was just the amount of total
59-42 Auburn.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah. And I think that was probably in all-time SEC championship record, probably was, even with some of the Spurrier teams.
Yeah.
That total points scored, if you took the over there, you were good.
Yeah. But I think Auburn in that game, Trey Mason had 44 carries or 46 carries for 304 yards. And he would have, had he had a few more carries, he would have broken, I believe, Curtis Kuykendall, the all-time record, Auburn versus Miami, yards in a game.
That might have, he got hit so much, that might have really shortened his career. Probably did. I mean, he didn't last very long in the pros, and he had, head issues and stuff. He might have really gotten popped. And that game, he really wasn't the same after that game. I mean, he laid it on the line. He was a warrior, but, he might have paid a big price for being in that game and carrying that load.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see more and more now in college football, running back by committee. Now, we saw that in the past when you ran the wishbone. It was not unusual for Oklahoma or Alabama when they were in the 70s running the wishbone. You had a stable of running backs.
Well, as great as Bo Jackson was at Auburn until his senior year when, he was trying to get the Heisman, they put him in an I formation. But up until his senior year, he was not featured, which is astounding to everybody. I mean, they had, a wishbone attack under Jack Crow, and, Lionel James got lots of carries. So, Bo was not in an I formation except for 1 year, and he put up all those yards anyway. That just shows you how crazy he was.
Yeah, and, you remember that first game, it was Willie Howell from Thomaston, Georgia, Robert E. Lee High School, just across the Flint River over there. You had Ron O'Neill from Walker County High School up there next to Atlanta, Barbecue, number 44, and Lionel James. I mean, that was the starting backfield in 1982 in the first game, and then Bo came in and held on to that position for a long time. But I think that when you had the wishbone, you had a bunch more guys. You spread the carries out. When you go to a single back formation and you're trying to feed a back 35 or 40 times a game, you just don't see that anymore.
No, I mean, when we were talking about Arkansas a couple minutes ago, I mean, that team they had where they had McFadden, they had 3 or 4 amazing running backs all on the same team. It was
Felix Jones from Tulsa on that team, running back. Peyton Hillis out of Conway, Arkansas, home of one of the teams with one of the greatest high school nicknames in America, the Conway, Arkansas Wampus Cats.
That's awesome.
I mean, that you can't make up a better name. And that's where the University of Central Arkansas is over there. And their nickname is the Sugar Bears. That's pretty good. That wasn't that a cereal, Billy, coming up?
Yes.
Sugar Bears. Correct.
And Sugar Pops. They call them Corn Pops today because back then they just called it what it was, Sugar Pops.
Yeah. It's just a sugar pop, just a jolt. Like someone I remember also in the mid 80s, people on the concourse at Haley Center giving out free samples of Jolt Cola. Mm-hmm. And all my friends were like, Browne, no, you don't need any.
The sugar and twice the sugar and all the caffeine, or the other way around. They had a great logo for that.
Yeah. And Billy, we're going to be getting in. You're going to be our tennis correspondent. You remember Dick Grand on ESPN? Yeah. He'd be everywhere at the French Open, the Australian Open, U.S. Open, Wimbledon.
George Grand.
George Grant. Okay. George Grant. He was really, really good. I think he's still doing it. But I love tennis. And Rodney Orr is going to try to join us here in just a minute. We're going to make sure we can work a technical snafu out. If not, he'll be ready to go tomorrow. But I'll go back watching professional tennis with Jimmy Connors, John McEnroe, and Ely Nastasi, Bjorn Borg, Rod Laver, Stan Smith, Arthur Ashe. We had flamboyant characters on the tennis court.
Yeah.
And I remember one time my dad watching Pete Sampras win another tournament, another title. And he said, That Pete Sampras wins a hell of a lot of tennis matches, but he's about as dull as watching paint dry.
Yeah.
Kind of give me John McEnroe. You can't be serious.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was that era where tennis really took off because the guys at the top of the game were also big characters, big personalities. But, when you watch a Federer or a Sampras, they're not demonstrative like that. But you're watching excellence, and you have to appreciate it in a different way. Just the perfection in their game. Every component of their game is honed, to the razor edge. I mean, both of those guys, and it's no surprise that Federer's favorite player growing up was Sampras. That was his idol, and he modeled his game after Sampras in a lot of ways. But it's the same thing sometimes when you watch some of these golfers. We love the guys that have got big personalities, but to win at golf, you better have your personality under wraps and just be a robot. I mean, because you've got to control your emotions in a game of precision. You really can't just lose it and then get it back. It's hard. McEnroe could do it, and he used it as a motivational tool when he was in a tight spot in a match. A lot of times he would argue a line call just to break the rhythm of the game up, or to kind of kick himself in the butt a little bit. He knows the ball was in, but he makes a big stink about it just to rattle the opponent and maybe fire himself up. And he'll admit that today as an older guy. But he was strategic about losing his mind, back then. And if they had a pitch clock kind of thing on temper tantrums, that's probably what they should have done, back in those days, to not let them carry on, because it's disruptive to the opponent, and it was a strategy a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, Billy, you think back in golf. I was talking yesterday with MJ about golf. You drive for show and you putt for dough, is what a lot of golfers will tell you. And that short putting game is mentally the most important 6 inches on the golf course, the tennis court, basketball court, football field, the boardroom, is the 6 inches between your ears.
Yeah.
And mentally, if you're not physically in great shape, mentally, what goes first, the mind or the body? I mean, I don't think it's the same with everybody. I think there are people, I personally observed as a television reporter out there at Fort Benning, going out with the Rangers for 4 or 5 days at a time and spending the night in the field with no sleep, 1 meal a day, an MRE that you spread out over the day. After about 3 or 4 days of that, your body just goes into a different place, and your mind, and you can just handle anything they throw at you. But more than anything, you've got to mentally be tough. If you're not mentally tough and you're pushed real hard in sports or in business, you're going to break down. Okay. I mean, and I know you've got a call that you've got to get on, but just let us know and kind of give me the old thumbs up when you got to go. But
yeah, I actually got to go, but it's good talking to you this morning, and we'll catch up soon.
No, yeah, we'll be in Atlanta this weekend, so looking forward to seeing you. And then the Auburn Club. What's the night? It's a week from tomorrow night.
Yeah,
the Atlanta Auburn Club.
Yeah,
Hugh Freeze and Coach Bruce Pearl and all be the Tigers. It'd be a lot of fun. So look, we'll get you back on later this week, Billy. Thank you so much. Always love having you on here. Lots to talk about. And I want to get more into tennis the next time you're on here, because we got to bring back American tennis. We need the next John McEnroe, and you're going to tell us who it is, okay?
Yep. That sounds good.
All right. Thanks so much. Rodney Orr will be trying to join us here. And I'm telling you, we're having difficulties with Rodney's mic, and we're going to try to get that worked out. And hopefully we can get that worked out today. If not, we'll have it back on tomorrow. Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com, will be on here with us in just a moment. And, I think it's really interesting to me when I look at, as Billy talked about, in tennis, the kids start out so young, and I've talked to people I know that were great tennis players. I love to play tennis. I'm not a great tennis player, but you got the parents and people screaming, hanging on to the chain link fence there. You create a lot of these prima donnas in sports, and it's that way across the board. They have always been around. But when you don't have a John McEnroe or a Jimmy Connors in the tennis world, you sure as hell wish you did, because it's not like it used. We need to bring back the fun in sports and quit trying to proselytize people. I turn on a TV sports network, I don't want to hear a bunch of screaming, loud, obnoxious jerks trying to tell me how to think and what to think, what's right and what's wrong. Shut up and dribble, play sports. Let's play ball. Let's see the games play out. Okay? You can turn on any channel you want to watch all that other stuff. But, when it comes to sports, it's fair game for sports. Okay? Like what's going on? Hey, men should play against men. Women should play against women. I'd hate to imagine if the men, if you don't see women bouncing around going into men's sports, but you see these men dropping down to play against the women. What's going on there? Doesn't make any sense. I think it's rather obvious. If you can't compete with men, you're going to no. The rules are what they are. We're going to be right back, Sidelines, on this Monday after this quick commercial message.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back here with you. And, I just don't see all the people out there campaigning against men delving into women's sports. But we're gonna get into that. I'm gonna tell you what, that's fair game. That's in the sports world. And we've got to get people, use your heads. Okay? Men compete against men, women compete against women. It's that simple. 72% of our audience is men. That means 28% are women. That's all there is. There's no other. Okay? Wake up, America. Quit trying to placate and just, go along to get along. We got to get sports are special, and we love them. And that's why we talk about them a lot. We do it 6 days a week. www.sidelines.live. Also, follow us on Twitter @sidelines_live. There's a whole lot going on in the sports world. And when you are looking to be entertained, Kurt Cobain back in the mid-90s said it best. Here we are. Entertain us. Someone ought to get the rights, check with his estate or whatever, and use that song as a promo for a sports network. I'm not going to be surprised if Apple or Fox doesn't try to buy ESPN. I mean, I'm not going to be surprised one bit. Apple makes a lot of sense because ask yourself these 3 questions, and I want an honest answer. When was the last time you woke up in the morning, on the way to work, during lunch, after work, on a weekend, you went to a store to buy a camera, an alarm clock, or a radio? Okay? Radio's great, but the power of podcasts, it's immeasurable. You never run out of signal range. You're everywhere. You talk to anybody that flies, travels. You get on a plane in New York and you're flying to Los Angeles. As soon as the dang wheels are up, you've got the podcast on. Hopefully you're listening to www.sidelines.live. But that's what people are doing. When was the last time you saw someone walking around holding a radio in their hands? Think about what I just said. You just don't see it. They're unicorns. If you do, they're very rare. They're getting everything from their smartphone, iPhone, Android. Okay? And you can sync our show in from anywhere. And if you miss it live within an hour or so, it's up on the website, thanks to our great website director, Nigel. And you can hear the show from anywhere. From anywhere, you can do it. And that is different. Radio's wonderful. But I'm going to tell you one thing that's great about the podcast world and radio. You better remember, we have free speech in this country. Be responsible, but don't be afraid to voice your opinion and say what you think and say what you believe. So I love it. I love what's happening with sports. Franz Beard will be on here with us in just a minute. Rodney Orr, going to try to get this worked out for tomorrow. Rodney, Tider Insider, love having him on here. He is one of the absolute best. But when I sit there and I look around at what's happening, go up and down the charts: football, basketball, baseball, tennis, golf, swimming. It doesn't matter. People want to be entertained. They love sports. They love the people that play sports. And we have allowed, tell you what we've allowed to happen. I'm going to tell you why the NIL is going to bust. I mean, it's there now. You got to have it. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not this big fan of you wait until you have a player at a school who gets $300,000 or $400,000 to come in January to your school. And after spring practice, he's not where he wants to be on the depth chart. And by God, if you paid him that money up front, he can leave you and transfer to another school. Now, let me tell you how it works in the real world, in the business world. If you are paid to come from one company A to company B, typically you have a 5-year or 3-year contract. Okay? And you've got to, it works. A contract, it's both parties have to do their part. Better watch out with this NIL people and about recruiting someone to come to your school just because you're going to give them some money. Because they'll leave because someone else will give them more money. You just watch. So the free market will work this out because people will stop. Like, what are we seeing all over the country now among consumers? Cord cutters. Look at the number of people 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, who were paying $200, $250 a month to some cable service. All right. And look how many of them have left that and they're streaming now. You get on the stream, whatever you do, it's amazing. I'll tell you right now, shout out to my friend George Gaddis Home Innovation. They can come into your house and set you up at way less money than you think it costs. GaddisHomeInnovation.com. They are incredible. GATTAS. I know he's had people that have said someone wants, $20,000 and he's able to do it for significantly less. He knows how to do it. Doesn't have the overhead. But fans absolutely want their sports. You got the SEC network, and they do a really good job. I mean, they're showing the men's and women's sports. SEC has men's and women's sports, all for it. I'll tell you one thing. We need to start seeing this on the national level, and that is people standing up and saying, hey, men's sports are for men, women's sports are for women. And I think back to when Vanderbilt had the girl out there as the kicker a few years ago. Oh, it was cute and funny. People talked about it. What if Vanderbilt would have tried a fake field goal, reverse, something, a trick play with her running around the right side, and she's met in the open field by a 6'5", 275-pound defensive end that runs a 4.75 40 and has about a 20-mile-an-hour head of steam built up out in the open field, and she gets hit head on. Into that. But then we have congressional hearings that football is too rough, and we've got to change things. I'm telling you, people, you better get your heads out of the sand. We got enough ostriches. You can go to the Memphis Zoo and see them. Pay attention to what's going on around you in sports. You know what? If you've got daughters, I've got two of them. I got two boys. You want them competing against women, biological women. You want your men competing against men. It ain't complicated, folks. But we got a bunch of people in this country who surrender their character, their core values every day because they're afraid. They live in fear. Scared man ain't never won a fight. No true words have been said by that man who always parks my truck by the Sigma New House at Auburn. Scared man ain't never won a fight. In sports, it's the same way. Same way in sports with what we got going on. If people would demand, hey, we want our sports to be what they are. And Beard is a man, a wise man. Friends, dives, drive-ins, and diners. I caught you mid-bite just now. Sorry about that.
Yes, you did.
Nigel is working on some stuff. Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, was going to be on in the segment before you, but a little problem with the Android versus the iPhone stream, so we're going to get that worked out for tomorrow. But I was just talking about what's going on in sports, Franz. There's nobody coming out on the national networks anywhere taking a stand that men's sports are for men, women's sports are for women. And it's just this, they're afraid, don't you have a spine? I mean, stand up for what is right. And all these people that we think would be out there fighting and voicing support, they're not there. Riley Gaines goes to San Francisco State University and gets cornered into a room for 3 hours. There's no arrest of anybody. This is insane. A 12-time All-American, and apparently no relation to the legendary Ambrose E. Rowdy Gaines from Winter Park, Florida, great swimmer at Auburn. But friends, at some point, people are going to have to get their, what's off the lockbox, out of the lockbox in the mantle above the fireplace, and reassert themselves. And the women's sports should not be subject to this kind of garbage. People need to stand up for what is right. And this is not political, friends. This is sports, isn't it? Because you're talking sports. And it's really kind of crazy that we're letting this happen. But Riley Gaines, I'm proud of her, going around the country and standing up for what is right. And if I'm a young girl playing sports, I don't want to be staying up at night worrying, going, I'm going to train myself and then have to compete against a man. I mean, this is.
Well, it's like this, Rob. And you kind of hit the nail on the head when you're talking about the field goal kicker. But let's put it on a perspective of women's sports, okay? Let's imagine a lacrosse game between a women's lacrosse game. And here all of a sudden is this 6'3", 215-pound guy who puts on his little skirt and his little sports bra. And he goes out there, and now you have weaponized him, because anybody who thinks that women's lacrosse is a sweet little old game in which they just flip a little ball around, you hadn't seen it yet, because they get out there and beat the hell out of each other with these sticks.
They do.
Now imagine a man who says, yes, my name is Donnie, but everybody call me Diane.
Yeah.
He's 6'3", 215 pounds, comes out, and he can really run, gets out there, and all of a sudden he smacks some girl across the head, and knocks her cold. And while he's about it, he throws an elbow behind some girl, knocks her forward, hits her head, she has a concussion, etc. People don't take these things into account. They think that, well, we have to be equal. And see, this is what de Tocqueville feared for America back when he was writing all these marvelous essays about liberty. And what he feared was we would get to a point where exceptionalism was poo-pooed because we couldn't have people feeling bad about things. And here's what we've got, Rob. We've got a society that says everything has to be equal. We have participation trophies. Because we can't have people feeling bad. We have, instead of praising exceptionalism, we want to praise everybody being the same. Well, that's straight out of the Communist Manifesto. The fact of the matter is, sports are built around, for lack of a better term, a meritocracy. That if I'm better than you, I will get the trophy. I will get the recognition. I will get the big contract, etc., like that. And if I'm not good enough, then I finish second place. But we've gone into a society now that says we have to honor everybody because somebody might cry. Well, I like the tears that I saw from Trinity Thomas Saturday. This is a girl that gets out there and she's hurting badly, and she still wants to participate and do what she can to see if she can help to elevate her team to a national championship. She gets a 10 on her vault. She's only, if she participates in all four, if she's healthy, Florida destroys Oklahoma and wins the national championship. But she guts it out with an injury, only in two events, gets a 10 and a 9.9 on them, and Florida, as a result, misses the national championship by 0.15. The tears she had were from being able to compete against girls that she's been competing against all her life, and making a statement there. The tears were about, I've endured and I made the, and what we're doing is we're taking the tears away.
Yeah.
And that is not right.
Yeah. And friend, look, we're about to take a break. I'm totally with you. And we've got it. Tommy Tuberville, senator from Alabama, is fighting for it. He goes, where's everybody? Why is nobody standing up for women's sports? And again, my daughter played lacrosse in high school, and I worked with them on some of their conditioning. They were tough. I would not want my daughter coming after me with a lacrosse stick. We'll be right back. Sidelines. Franz, it's a big discussion because everybody's talking about it, but Tommy Tuberville and some senators are saying, where is the support? We got to have it, but it's got to happen, and we're going to see. Women's sports are for women. That period. Men's sports are for men. You're not seeing women jumping up to men's sports, but you're seeing men. I say go down, just go to women's sports, but men stick to men's sports, women stick to men's sports, to women's sports. All right, let's talk about SEC right now. Real quick, baseball, SEC West, you got Arkansas on top, 2 games ahead now of LSU. Mm-hmm. Florida's right there behind Vanderbilt. How many teams, I think you may see from what we saw last year in the West happen in the East this year. Could you have 4 teams from the East make it to the College World Series this year? Is the division that strong? I do think Arkansas and LSU are going to be there too.
Well, what you're going to find out very quickly is that you've got 3 teams, I think, at the top there in the SEC East, and that is Vanderbilt, Florida, and South Carolina. And I believe these 3 teams are better than the other 4. Kentucky is good, but I don't think they've got enough offense. They've got good pitching. They play good defense. I don't think they have enough offense to really be now they're going to make a regional, obviously, and they're going to be a threat because they're pitching in their defense. But I don't think they've got the offense it takes to get into into a deep run. Whereas Vanderbilt, Florida, South Carolina can mash it. I mean, I was there yesterday when Jack Caglione. Oh, what a scene that was after Brandon Neely got ejected by umpire Brian DeBrower because he pumped his fist. Seriously, he pumps his fist after getting a strikeout with the bases loaded, and he tosses him from the game. Well, it's a 6-4 ball game, and all that did was light a fire in the Florida dugout. Next thing you know, Caglione is up there. It's a 7-4 ball game, and he hit his second homer of the day, his 21st of the season, which leads the country, opposite field on a 1-2 count, and takes it deep for a home run. Florida can do things like that. South Carolina can do things like that. Vanderbilt is a team that can beat you in more ways because they got Enrique Bradfield at the top of the order. Vanderbilt has the best pitching. Florida and South Carolina have the best offenses. Florida's pitching could catch up. Over in the West, Arkansas and LSU, I think, are the class, and we'll end up with Vanderbilt, Florida, South Carolina, Kentucky. Tennessee will make a regional simply because they're Tennessee. Arkansas, LSU will. Probably Texas A&M too. But then you're going to have a group there with like Alabama and Missouri. And I think Auburn also will be in that mix. Auburn is a better team than 20 and 15. You know, the 20 and 15 record is quite deceiving. They're a better team than that. They're very, very capable of doing some damage. What Auburn's got to do is Auburn has to have a weekend where the pitching and the hitting are in sync. Because one weekend all the hitters are hitting and the pitchers aren't pitching, and the next weekend all the pitchers are pitching and the hitters aren't hitting. They need to find a way to have both of them happen at the same time. But they're a dangerous team. And I'll tell you another dangerous team, and that's Mississippi State. Did you see the crowd that they had Saturday at the Dude? NCAA record 16,000 were there. Florida had 20,000 for its 3 games with Georgia. What I'm seeing is this. We're getting to a point where baseball is almost a revenue sport. That's in the SEC. That's not everywhere, and that's not everywhere in the SEC. But you look at Florida where they averaged almost 7,000 a game for 3 games in that beautiful new stadium that we have here. And it's an arms race. Everybody better keep up. And it's amazing what's going on with the baseball it is that focus on facilities and things like that is bringing people to the SEC. The best players are saying, well, wait a second. Why go beat around the bushes in the minors when I can play, 60, 70 ball games in college and have that college experience and mature? Josh Rivera, the perfect example, a kid who is over 4 years now, turned himself into probably a 3rd-round draft pick. He'd have been a free agent signing last year, but he stayed. He came back. He focused on completing his body to the point now you're talking about a kid who's 6'2", 6'3", 200 pounds, plays shortstop like the best. I think the best shortstop in the SEC. 14 homers already. He only had 9 last year. 9 was the best he'd ever done at any level. So this is the kind of thing that's going on in SEC baseball. We're getting better players, better athletes. Jack Caglione will be, I promise you, next year he's probably going to be the first player chosen in the draft when he's 21 years old. Yeah. And somebody's going to have somebody's going to have a real dilemma on their hand. Do I want him to pitch? Do I want him to hit? Do I want him to do both? Because he's really capable. He was throwing 98, 99 yesterday.
I mean, how long he can sustain throwing that fast is always the question, just your body holding up. But you're right about the facilities. There's only one SEC player in history who's been inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. We know that's Frank Thomas from Auburn, but I think now you hit on it exactly right. With the facilities upgrades, the stadiums, the crowds, over 16,000 at the Duty Noble Stadium, Starkville, Mississippi, for a game between the last two national champions, 21 Mississippi State, 22 Ole Miss. College baseball in the state of Mississippi is it's king, but both of them are struggling this year. They play in the toughest division in the toughest baseball league in America. But I'm with you. If I'm a kid coming out of high school, unless I'm a top pick where I'm going to be guaranteed a pile of money, and I'm smart enough to put that away and live like I'm making next to nothing, unless I'm in that elite category, I'm definitely going to go to college, to an SEC school, play a minimum 3 years in great facilities, get my education started, may not be able to graduate in 3 years. You know, you can make a lot of things happen with a degree, but you know, there's nothing, you can't put a price tag. It's so valuable, the college experience. And what we're guilty of nowadays, we're trying to rush everybody through. I mean, everybody from high school, forget your semester of your senior year, just get to college because you're all going to the NFL. Bull crap. You're not. Enjoy high school. I mean, I know some of these guys, they're coming in, but let's be honest. We're talking around 3,300 kids a year sign Division I scholarships. 3,300 in the whole country. And if only 3,300 kids out of a population of 330 million are missing the second semester of their senior year, remember, everybody else is enjoying the second semester of their senior year of high school. But we're just way too into rushing. You know, Franz, kid comes out, has a good first game as a freshman on your football team. People will start going, oh, he'll be in the league in 3 years. You don't know that. His head may get so big, it blows up after being told how great he is, and he never does another thing his whole career.
You remember when Trey Burton, as a true freshman at Florida, scores 6 touchdowns against Kentucky, and everybody says, whoa, this kid is absolute lightning in a bottle. Well, he had a great game, but guess what? How many touchdowns did he score after? He finishes his career as a hybrid wide receiver tight end. Now, he made a nice career in the NFL doing that.
Yeah.
But my point being is we crowned him king.
Yeah.
And all he had was one good ball game.
Yeah.
You know, Florida's got a kid this year named Cade Curlin who is skipping his entire senior year. He enrolled back in September and made it through. He's having he hit a grand slam Friday night. He's having a tremendous year, and he's a freshman. Now, he did it because he had the grades to do it. He had this is a kid who was doing well, so well in school and he came to school, and because of all the credits he had accumulated already through these AP, courses and tests and everything like that, he came to school and he was already like a sophomore academically. So for a kid like that makes, that can make sense to do it. But for every kid like that, for whom it makes sense, we have 100 who should be staying in school and going to the prom.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that in basketball, my God, if you have a good game as a freshman, you're automatically, oh, he's one and done. He'll be in the league. You don't know that. It's too early to tell. I mean, I always like to say, if a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. If a guy's got it, he's going to show you early. But Coach John Brady, our friend, said it so well, and it just really resonates. He said, we hear so much about this team has 2 lottery picks, or this one has 3, or whatever. He goes, well, lottery picks don't go out and score 7 points and get 2 rebounds.
Yeah.
He goes, I've coached a lottery pick or 2 in my day at Samford and LSU and Arkansas State. And they go out and do 20 and 12 night in and night out. That's what they're doing. And they don't have those big deals. They may occasionally, but they're going to show up every night. And that's the true indicator. Again, not just someone who does it when they feel like it.
Well, we've got a real issue in that kids think that they're ready for the NBA, for example. You used a great example there. And we got kids who think they're ready for the NBA because they did it on the AAU circuit. Well, I've been around the AAU circuit enough to know that nobody plays any defense. And these kids who are scoring 25 a game, and they go from the Nike Peach Jam to, let's say, Auburn University, and all of a sudden they're playing for Bruce Pearl, and first day in practice, Bruce says, assume a defensive stance. And they say what?
Yeah.
A defensive stance. Huh? Coach, I score, I shoot. We had a kid named Marty Kuzma, who was part of the 1994 Florida run to the Final Four, playing for Lon Kruger.
Yeah.
And he had been signed by Norm Sloan, and he comes here on the first day. Lon Kruger says, where were you? He says that you didn't box out. He says, I'm a shooter. I don't rebound. And he was from Finland, and they called him the Flying Finn or something like that, or the Thin Finn. Mick Huber had a nickname for him. But this is the problem that you get with these kids coming from AAU basketball. And it's a problem that you get from kids in high school football who, okay, I'm 6'6" and I'm 260 pounds in high school, and I'm a defensive end, and the tackles that I'm going against are 6'2" and 230 pounds. And I overpower them. And all of a sudden I go to college, and all of a sudden, hey, I'm ready. Look at me. I had 21 sacks last year as a senior in high school, and I'm early enrolled, and I'm here. Okay. Now all of a sudden you're going against a 6'7", 355-pound kid who knows it's a contract year. And so he's mean as a snake because of it, because he knows that if he has the good year, he can take care of mama and daddy and his 3 sisters, their 4 children, and his 2 brothers, who are one of whom is in jail or whatever. And this is what you get. And these kids, these kids coming out early are thinking, "Oh man, I'm out early. Look at me, I can do it. I made the Puma All-America team, or I made the made the Salcone or the Brooks Brothers or somebody's All-America team, and I got to be on TV." And they think they're ready, and they're not. And that we have a real issue with that. And you made a legitimate point. We're pushing kids too early. We're hanging a star label on them before they're ever out there actually working for it and proving. And if there's no work ethic involved, I mean, Michael Jordan. I saw an interview with him, and he talked about how everybody praised him for all the shots he made. He says, "That's because you never saw all the ones I missed, and that's because you never saw all the time I practiced." Tiger Woods talking about hitting balls till his hands bled. Well, you wonder why Tiger was so good. That's it. Jack Nicklaus, same thing, out there, first guy on the practice range. I'm at the Masters in '73. He's first guy on the practice range.
Yeah. Hold those thoughts, because you're exactly right. You're going to miss 1,000% of the shots you never take, but they never talk about what it takes to get there. Everybody wants to be something, but they don't want to do anything to get there. Be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne with Franz Beard, GatorbaitMedia.com. You can catch him a lot during the week on the Buddy Martin Show, which is on Facebook and Twitter at 9 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Thursday. Franz, a great writer, puts his daily thoughts, his one final pithy thought, covers the Gators, the SEC, and the big picture of college sports. Very insightful, along with Frank Duffy, two of the world's most interesting men. And I love this discussion we're having about the guys. They have a good game, or everybody just jumps. Everybody wants to be the first one to say he's going to be a star. I mean, I'll say right now, Harold Perkins, linebacker for LSU. Last year in the Arkansas game, he really showed out, had like 4 sacks. But he did it in multiple games where he really contributed, and he helped LSU to win 10 games in year 1 under Brian Kelly. But, football, people forget, you alluded to it a minute ago in your comments, how many times this guy in high school we see about some big defensive end or whatever, big defensive lineman. Well, you forget who he was playing against. If he's playing against a bunch of, academy schools that really don't have truly competitive football teams, watch out. Now, you want to see how he plays. I remember talking to a recruiting coordinator one time at an SEC school who told me, I look at a guy's career during the regular season like every other coaching, staff does. But what I really pay attention to is when they get to the playoffs, does he step it up several notches? Okay. Because if he's just good against average to subpar competition and he doesn't perform against better competition, he doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell when he gets to the SEC. Borrow the line from the great Merle Haggard song, "Stop rolling downhill like a snowball headed for hell." By the way, friends, Merle Haggard's got to be one of the greatest country singers ever. What? Okay, good. Now,
I like Merle.
Question here, by the way. We had this discussion, quite a debate at the Crawfish Festival over in Wilson, Arkansas, which is one of the coolest towns you've ever seen in the Mississippi Delta, Saturday. And people said he was never in prison. That song, I was 21 in prison doing life without parole. Mama tried, mama tried. So yes, he was. I've got a picture in a book it is a picture of the pardon and parole paper, his parole paper, signed by then Governor Ronald Wilson Reagan. And apparently they had a different system back then in California, and they threw it out. I don't think it was the 3 strikes and you're out or whatever, but Merle Haggard actually did do some time in the lockup, but one of the great singers of all time, along with Boxcar Willie. But let's move along. You look at sports right now, the Gators. Let's talk about Florida. You have everything in the world that you could want at Florida. I missed that series so badly. Along with Georgia Tech, Florida was one of Auburn's oldest rivals. I think that's going to fix itself with the new pods. We'll play at least twice every 4 years. You want to play the Gators. From 1989 to 2009, the winningest team in college football. You're the one who chronicled all this, you and Buddy Martin. And then you go into a period like right now. You talked the other day about all the close games Florida lost last year. It's no different than Sam Pittman in his first year at Arkansas. They could have been 6-4 the year of the virus. Next year they're 9-4. Last year they're 7-6. They didn't win the close games last year. Let's talk about the Gator talent and who you think is going to get the job done at quarterback, or do we not know who he is yet?
Well, I everybody's reading, and I wrote about it today. Everybody is reading into this thing that says, "Oh my gosh, Billy Napier is looking for a starting quarterback in the portal because he really doesn't have any faith or confidence in the 3 he's got." Well, he does. That's the thing, and nobody understands that. What he was saying was, we need 4 quarterbacks because what happens if a guy gets hurt? For example, last year, Jack Miller was doing quite well, and then he broke his thumb, and it was a slow heal. He didn't take another. That was in August. Didn't take another snap until mid-November, and a month later, he's quarterbacking in the Las Vegas Bowl, or the Lost Wages Bowl, however you want to call it. He's quarterbacking there. Why? Because Jalen Kitna had this little issue with kiddie porn on his computer. Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
talking about a kid who had a chance for everything, and now his future is all he's one. Talking about one and done. He was one season where he's getting to play, and now he's done forever because of a stupid. And things like this happen. This is why you've got to have 4 quarterbacks. And people are reading into this, and they're reading and they're not taking a time to think. Folks, use your brain besides something that parts your ears. Okay.
Yep.
Actually think. Because if you don't have 4 quarterbacks, last year, Florida has 4 quarterbacks. And guess what happens? Anthony Richardson decides to go pro. Jack Miller spends the whole year with a broken thumb. Jalen Kitna, who played well when he did, suddenly gets arrested. And now you go to Las Vegas Bowl with a guy who hasn't started a game since 2019 at something like Chaparral Christian or something like that in Arizona, and a backup named Max Browne who hasn't seen a single snap in live action all year. And that's who you go to a bowl game with.
Yeah.
That's why you got to have 4 quarterbacks. And that's why I'm laughing at all these people who are in a panic mode. But of course, being in a panic mode is in our Florida DNA. I mean, we're supposed to panic. If we don't win a championship, we're supposed to panic, so everybody's panicking.
Yeah. Well, Max Browne, I have a son named Max Browne, but I don't think we talked about the other day. Doesn't have an E on the end of his name. But remember, just a few years ago, the number 1 player in America was Max Browne, the quarterback, who signed with Southern Cal out of high school. I'm not sure where he ended up his career, but Max Browne, if you're listening right now, you could be a superstar quarterback. Just go to practice. But Franz, want to talk. You talk about panicking. I think that's every fan base. Once you win, like Florida has won and Auburn's won, and then you're struggling like both of those programs are right now, the fans want it so bad. But you go back and let's take a look at some of the cycles. I think people, I can think of 82 to 02, that 20-year period, 82 to 02. This is after Charles, oh my gosh, Charles White. I think it's one of the greatest running backs ever. 5'9", carried the ball 35 times a game, 40 times a game. I go back and I think about in that 20-year cycle, Southern Cal won 10 games or more only one time, Franz. And then Pete Carroll came along in 2001, and in 2002, they win 11 games and they beat Iowa's soundly in the Orange Bowl. I think about Oklahoma after Barry Switzer left. Gary Gibbs, John Blake for a year, Howard Schnellenberger. And then they bring in a guy named Bob Stoops who'd been at Florida 96, 97, 98. And everybody kept saying when Florida solves that defensive mystery, they're going to be unbeatable. Well, the first year they win the national championship and just beat the hell out of everybody. It was just like Mickey Andrews out of Ozark, Alabama, who came to Florida State in 84. Instead of Florida State trying to outscore everybody, they started having a real defense. You think about Alabama, 97 to 07, that 11-year cycle, Franz. 8 times in those 11 years, the Tide lost 5 games or more. As my friend Coach Reed, my 9th grade homeroom teacher and history teacher, legendary Ole Miss athlete, the last 16 letterman in Ole Miss history, class of 47, football, basketball, baseball, and track and field. And as Coach Reed used to say, I love going down there to Sardis Reservoir and catching me a mess of crappie. But Coach Reed, I think about that. You just look at these cycles that schools go through, and boom, you get the right guy in there, everything changes. Steve Spurrier, his first year at Florida, I'm giving him credit for that one. Just like I give Auburn credit for the 72 SEC championship at 5-1. Alabama played an extra game. Auburn beat them head-to-head. Tigers win. Florida 1990. That was nonsense. They were the best team in the league in Spurrier's first year. They won it the second year. But damn, friends, you think about Florida. I've been to Gainesville, to Alachua County. I've been to the Swamp a few times.
Yeah.
That's Heartbreak Hotel down there. But, man, once your mind goes from here, it never goes back where it was, does it? Comfortably.
No, that's the thing about when you fulfill expectations, all of a sudden everybody's expectations are – people forget the journey you had to go through to get to the pinnacle. People forget about Florida lost 62-24 to Nebraska. Of course, nobody ever takes into account all the injuries Florida had before that, but in 95, and then they come back and win it all in 96. And people forget the peaks and the valleys along that road. Tommy Tuberville taking over at Auburn. I remember him coming to Florida. It was in 2000, and that's the game where with the infamous snap over the head of Rex Grossman, who goes running back to the 25-yard line, picks up the ball, and then spins and throws a blind pass because he knew where Jabbar Gaffney was going to be, and it was in the corner of the end zone for a touchdown. And that was a game that Tommy Tuberville's tried to open it up with an onside kick, and Florida kind of figured that maybe he might do something strange like that, and he did. They recovered. I think Jabbar Gaffney. That was the game that Rex Grossman to Jabbar Gaffney became an SEC item. But I look at it, and Auburn. If you judge Auburn that year, you think, oh gosh, they're not going to be that good. Well, then along they come in 2004 and they go 13-0. They were unbeatable. And if they had a playoff then instead of this insane, stupid BCS, if they'd had a playoff there, Auburn would have been in it. And I believe Auburn was the best team in the country because nobody could stop Ronnie Browne and Cadillac Williams from running the football. And it was just, and Campbell at quarterback was mobile enough that you couldn't sack him. He, the protection bus, he takes off and he's good for 20 yards. And this was that Auburn team, and they played great defense. Goodness, folks, but people forget the journey that Auburn had to get to 13-0. It was painful. There were some painful losses in that. And somehow or another, we've lost sight of things like that. We've lost the ability to appreciate the journey along the way. It's great to win. It's also great to appreciate what you have to do to become that winner.
Yeah. You just, again, you're a great writer, but you can also articulate your points verbally as well. And that is the journey, what it takes to get there, because the way you handle yourself coming off the field in victory or defeat says everything about how you're going to approach practice the next day, the rest of the week, and that next weekend's game. If you are a defeated man who just absolutely cannot handle not winning, you know what? You're going to stay the defeated man. And I just got a text here from one of our listeners here, Dr. Waller May Veterinary Clinic in Tuscaloosa and Northport since 1964. We'll have Rodney on tomorrow, Tyler Insider Report, sponsored by May Veterinary Clinic. Dr. May just said, hey, just ask Jason, Ronnie, Cadillac, and all the others, 2004 national champions forever. And friends, that's what I've noticed. My friend, the late Mark Green, used to say, some fan bases are so obsessed with just winning the national championship that anything short of that, they're miserable. He goes, life is too precious and too valuable and sacred to look at it like that. And you're right. Remember what it took to get you there. Because when you're celebrating, jumping up and down and laying on that field with confetti and smoke and the craziness, all y'all that fought like hell to get there are going to remember it. You go to med school, you go to vet school, you go to law school, you go to college, your pledge brothers, people you go through hell with. When you finish and they say you've made it, you celebrate with them because you remember the good, the bad, and the ugly, don't you?
Oh, exactly. You just brought up another point. It reminded me. 1994, Florida has the choke at Doak. 1995, they lose the ball game to Nebraska. They get clunked. I mean, it was bad. And then they come back and win it, step by step by step. And we tend not to appreciate what it takes to get there. I look at these guys maybe a little bit different than a lot of people because I think of them, particularly in football, they're warriors because you have to, the abuse you have to take and give to your body, the punishment is unbelievable.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break, Franz. And I'm just glad you said it the way you did because it just reminded me, hey, don't ever not take time to appreciate what you got. Be right back.
Yeah.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Yeah, and just, got Franz, I just got a good reminder from a friend of mine, Chris Saxon up and down, actually lives in Fairhope, Alabama now, I was mentioning the late Mark Green, a great friend of ours who died back in March of 2010. He was one of the original bloggers with Mark Murphy and Inside the Auburn Tigers. And Mark used to remember the old computers with the green, the Quotrons and everything? You had to keep the computer in an air-conditioned room. It was like some sacred deal. But Mark used to put together rankings of recruits, and some of them, instead of a 5, could be a 6 or a 6.5. And he used to talk about that a lot, about enjoy the journey along the way. Too many people are just obsessed with the end result. They don't enjoy the game itself. And, every day I start off with prayers, and I close the day with prayers. And in between, there's a lot of them too. And I'm not at all bashful about how I am, and neither are you. And I always say at the end of the show, we most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. I think, Franz, you have a way of putting things in the vernacular in such a good way. But damn, it does remind us, just enjoy. I love going to the games and remember the people. But if you want to celebrate with them when they win the championship one day, you got to be with them through the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hell, we can't all be Perry Mason, and we can't all be the district attorney who went against him in court, Hamilton Berger, can we?
No,
somewhere in between is the truth. And by the way, Hamilton, that poor guy, I mean, he had a rough career, didn't he?
Well, he lost every case with Perry Mason, and then in real life, he died a horrible death with lung cancer from having smoked about 12 packs of cigarettes a day, and he had a really painful death in life because of that.
Yeah, it's just unreal. And when I think, when I think about, Hamilton Berger, what it would be like to be going to, and now I did find out from our good friend Dudley Dawson, hogville.net, on the show last Thursday, Perry Mason did lose one case to Hamilton Berger, but I must remind you, it was overturned in Perry Mason's favor.
Well, it's kind of like, Matt Dillon, a lot of people don't realize this, but Matt Dillon had never lost a showdown, and then he got shot, and Gunsmoke overnight went from the greatest show Western in history to just another show. I think they got beaten by the Flintstones, which were on Friday night, because Gunsmoke used to come on Friday night. That used to be the big night.
Yeah.
And Gunsmoke came on, and Matt Dillon got shot. And holy cow, we can only guess what Miss Kitty did to bring him back to life. And Doc Stone.
We're going to go to Wes Moore, ESPN 103.7, The Buzz in Little Rock. And I always remember the one when Matt Dillon had to shoot a couple of Miss Kitty's friends. And after he'd shot them both because they got out of hand, he goes into the bar to the to the saloon,
Long Branch
Saloon, and says, "Sorry about your friends, Miss Kitty. Maybe we can have supper here later tonight." Well, there you go. Hey, Wes Moore, let's talk Razorbacks right now. King of the Hill, 11-4 on top of LSU, and maybe you can tell us. And by the way, Franz, we got lucky 2 weeks ago. Our new satellite provider over here at the farm in Parkin, 30 minutes from Memphis. We get the Little Rock TV stations now. We get to watch Fox Sports Channel 16. Wes is also sports anchor. He's up in the morning doing a show, our show, his show. Then he does Fox Sports all over Arkansas, high school, college coverage, pro coverage. What a treat it is to have you on there, Wes. And but let's talk about those Razorbacks. And can you tell us why LSU and South Carolina, are they going to make up that game, or what are they going to do?
No, they will not make up that game. They're only going to play 29 conference games. So it happens in the SEC every year, and there's rainouts and games that throw off the standings. But no, it's a done deal.
Yeah. All right. The Hogs. LSU looked like they were going to run away early on, but Arkansas, they're every single year. The Baum Stadium, they're packing them in. They're here at 11-4 right now at the midway point. Can you compare this Razorback team to the more recent teams, which seem to all get to Omaha?
It's difficult. I'll just say that they're good. I mean, that's the one thing. Dave Van Horn was asked about it because this was like I think it's the 5th straight year that they've started 8-4 or better in SEC play. And he was asked, what's the secret to that? He said, good players. They've just been able to recruit good players, and they've done it again. They're hitting the transfer portal, kind of like Eric Musselman does in basketball. Dave Van Horn and his staff have been able to hit the portal the last 2-3 years and get some very productive players. You look at the top of their lineup with Tavion Josenberger from Kansas. He's come in, been a true number one hitter, leadoff hitter for them. Plays center field. Jared Wagner out of Creighton. I mean, this guy came in and did nothing but lead the team in home runs, RBI, runs scored, walks, hitting in the 3-hole. Well, he broke his thumb Tuesday. He's got a hairline fracture, and Dave Van Horn said he'll probably miss the next 3-4 weeks. And they went and swept Tennessee without him. It just shows the depth of this team. It's really what's been pretty amazing to me is on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, for the first time since I can remember, Dave Van Horn is playing 5 guys off of his bench. There was one night there were 8 guys off of his bench, and that's how deep they are. And there are a couple guys I'm like, I want him to play. I want him on the weekends. But the problem is I don't know who I would take out, and that's why the kid's not playing. He's good enough to play for just about any SEC team, but he can't get on the field for Arkansas because the guys in front of him are doing so well. So this is a deep team, and pitching wise, they lost 3 pitchers, a Friday night guy, a closer, and a main bullpen guy to 2 of them were season-ending injuries. The third one, they're hoping to get Brady Tiger back in the next couple of weeks, but they've had some young guys step up. That's what you had. You had a freshman pitch 3 innings and close out Saturday's game. You had a freshman yesterday come out and get the final 3 outs. This is a team that they've recruited well. They've replaced players. They've got depth, and they're just good. I mean, that's the bottom line. They have good players, and of course, we know they've got good coaching.
Oh, no doubt, Franz.
Yes, I am. Well,
Yeah.
I agree. And that's the thing. If you don't have good players, you're not going to win. And particularly in the SEC, because everybody has good players. And you better have, and the only people who win are the ones who have better ones, that's the one thing about it. We've got a kid named Richie Scheikoffer who's sitting on the bench, and a guy named Tyler Shelnut. Tyler Shelnut drove in 90 runs in JUCO last year playing in Florida, hit 20 home runs, and he gets to pinch hit at Florida. And the same Richie Scheikoffer, 2-time All Big Ten at Rutgers, and now he's at Florida, and he gets to pinch hit and pinch run. And it's not because they're not good players. They're very good players. And there are SEC teams like Wess is talking about. There are SEC teams that these guys would start for, and they're clamoring for a job, you know. And that's the thing about the SEC. And that's the thing about, you know, good coaches like Dave Van Horn, like Kevin O'Sullivan. They know how to build a roster and stack it. And they also know how to win games with guys that maybe you don't know about. Wes, I'm sure you remember Florida in 2017 winning the national championship, and a guy named Tyler Dyson comes. You know, everybody says, "Well, who's he?" Well, he pitched some in the midweek games, and all of a sudden, there he is in Omaha, and he's pitching a critical ball game. He pitched. I think he was the starter in the national championship game. And if you don't do things like what you're saying, Wes, and that's play your guys in those midweek games, because you're going to get to a point in these short series like you get in Omaha and in the regional where you better have somebody who knows how to step in and play. You got to have plug and play type.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Ben Bybee pitched yesterday for Arkansas. He's been pitching midweek games, but he's a true freshman, and he's shown enough in a couple of opportunities in the midweek that they believed enough in him yesterday to be the starting pitcher on a Sunday against Tennessee. And he came through. I mean, he pitched 3 2/3 shutout ball. And, I mean, that's all you can ask from a freshman to me on his Sunday start against Tennessee.
Franz, Wes, let's talk real quick about the Razorbacks, spring football, all the stuff that's going on right now. Your takeaways with football, because one of my listeners right now, his nephew, Patrick Kudus, is playing for the Razorbacks, and looks like he's going to be a potential starter on the offensive line. What did you see out of him and the rest of that offensive line, especially?
No, they like Kudus a lot. I think right now he's probably going to be the starting right guard. He'll be the starting center in the future. Their starting center right now is a senior, and if you've seen Coach Pittman's teams over the years, you know he values that center. He wants that to be a very experienced guy that can call the plays, and that's what they have right now at center. So Kudus will be the center of the future, and they're going to get him on the field this year. Coaches talked about getting the 5 best linemen on the field. And, you know, he's not big on, you know, this guy's your left tackle or left guard or prototypical right tackle. He wants his 5 best guys at their 5 best positions. So that's what they've tinkered with all spring. He challenged his assistant coaches, every one of his position coaches, to have a different starting lineup every single day, to put somebody new as a starter every single day. So they got that experience of being a starter. So if it ever happens during the season, it won't be new to them. And also some guys, when they're called to step up, they play better. You know, we've all heard of those freshmen or sophomores that they think, well, there's a senior in front of me. This isn't my year. I'm not going to be a starter. And they settle for being second team or third team. Well, all of a sudden you throw them in the starting lineup and they're forced to be a starter and they play like a starter. Then all of a sudden they realize, you know what, maybe this is my year, and they take over as a starter. So anyway, there's a lot of benefits for that, but that's really what they did all spring. It's hard to have a depth chart for this team because they've moved so many guys around. I know in their mind and in their locker room they have some starters, but for the media watching, it was so different every single day. It's hard to tell who your starters are.
Yeah, and I mean, Franz and I both we've been talking a lot of football and baseball, basketball this morning. I like that interchangeability. You teach those offensive linemen also to play everybody else's position, because guy goes down and they all know each other's assignments. They can step right in. There's not a big interruption. That's one of the reasons I love Sam Pittman. And the minute he was hired, Tommy Tuberville kept saying they ought to go get someone like Sam Pittman, who's over at Georgia, and bring him back. They said he'd come down there, he'd come up to Fayetteville and work cheap compared to what they have to pay some of these other guys. Now he needs to get paid everything he's worth, but I just think he fits, like we talked about with Matt Dillon. He fits Arkansas like Matt Dillon fit being the marshal in Gunsmoke?
Well, what we've seen this year, he didn't have to go out and get a new offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator the entire time he was at Arkansas because he had Browse and Odom sticking around. Well, both of them went and got jobs in the offseason. And it appears early on, I mean, the jury's still out, but it appears he went out and got good replacements. And I think, and what we've seen in the spring, the defense is going to be a lot more aggressive. Arkansas had a very good year last year, sacking the quarterback. They put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and that helped their defense. Yeah. And it appears that they're going to get after the quarterback even more this year under their new defensive coordinator. A lot of more blitzing and some exotic blitzes. So they were flying around, and they got after the quarterback Saturday, and Coach was asked about that, and Coach Pittman said, well, that's what we saw every single day. Our defense was giving our quarterbacks a lot of problems in his offensive line. So I don't know if that's a signal that the offensive line isn't very good, or the defensive line and the linebackers are really good, and the scheme is really good. But I know it's preparing that offensive line for anybody that may try to do some exotic blitzes or some blitzes throughout the season. They've seen it now all during spring, but I think this is going to be an aggressive and fun defense to watch.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. And look, Franz and I we love hearing you talk about this, because I think that, Marcus Woodson, Travis Williams, they've been around in the Deep South. You're also bringing in, Franz, you'd have to agree, great recruiters as well as outstanding coaches.
Well, if you're not if you're not recruiting in the SEC, you're losing. This is why Dan Mullen had a good thing going at Mississippi State, because he could get kids with a chip on their shoulder and win. And he came to Florida, but you can do that if your expectations are 7 wins, maybe 8 wins, and occasionally a 9-win season. But if you're going to do better than that, you better have better players. He never understood that. And as a result, Florida, he's no longer the coach at Florida. And I think Sam Pittman understands that. At some point in time, you got to start winning some of these recruiting battles. And you can get by for a while and win 7 ball games, or occasionally those 8-game seasons. You can do that with guys who are overlooked. But at some point in time, if you're going to beat Alabama, you got to be able to get the kind of players that Alabama gets and win with them. I think Sam will do that. He is one of these guys I think is a breath of fresh air in the SEC, because here's a guy that knows how to get the best out of his players, and yet, unlike some coaches, he doesn't take himself all that seriously.
Well, this is going to be a big week, because, it all starts at home. And it just so happens Arkansas's got a good recruiting class in 2024. Over the weekend, they got a 2025 quarterback from Little Rock. It may be the first quarterback they've signed out of Little Rock. In fact, that's something we've looked and tried to figure out, who's the last quarterback to start for the University of Arkansas from Little Rock. And I think it's Houston Nutt. I mean, we've asked this question on the radio for years, and no one can – I mean, that's the best answer we can come up with. But they signed it, or they got a commitment from a quarterback out of Little Rock over the weekend. He's for the 2025 class, but the 2024 class is loaded. And over the weekend, a couple of guys visited, and they announced they're going to make their decisions this Friday. One's a wide receiver from Pine Bluff that's got offers from all the SEC schools. The other's a defensive tackle from Little Rock Mills, or defensive end. He's got offers from all the Georgias, the Alabamas. I mean, these are both big-time players, and they're going to announce Friday where they're going to commit. And Razorback fans are feeling pretty good, since they were both on campus this past weekend for the spring game. But we'll find out for sure on Friday. I mean, that's what, you got to get those guys and then build off your in-state class. And look, they have one of the top defensive linemen in the country visiting over the weekend. They had a top wide receiver from California over the weekend. Doesn't normally happen. And all of a sudden, you're at least getting them on campus, and they're talking about Arkansas. Now, if they can just follow through and get those guys to commit and sign, then you're on to something recruiting wise.
Well, we've run out of time, unfortunately, but Travis Williams and Marcus Woodson, I just know them from their time at Auburn, watching them at Florida State and Memphis. You're going to start having guys visit that you were like, what? How did that? Just get ready. That it's going to be a hell of a ride. Wes, thanks so much for being with us. Let people know how they can keep up with you. And we were over in Wynn yesterday taking food. People, if you're listening, Wynn and Little Rock, Arkansas, they need help, and they're helping themselves more than anything. But Darlene and Walter Hill, great people. This is the greatest state. If you want to see what happens after a disaster, watch how the people of Arkansas respond. But Wes, always love having you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, go download the Buzz app. It's in your app store. It's the Buzz, 1037thebuzz.com. You can listen online, 1037thebuzz.com. We'll be starting up here in about 12 minutes, and we're going to talk with Bubba Carpenter today about the Razorback sweep. We're going to talk about the spring game. So it'll be a fun show, a loaded show today. I hope you can join us.
Hey, we will. I'll be listening. Thank you so much, Franz. Thank you so much. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. People go out and give with the expectation to get nothing in return. Just give to give. Don't give to get. Until then, have a great one. We are out of here.